Welcome to WrestleDope here on YouTube, and today we have the privilege and pleasure to be joined by none other than the Fozzy frontman and of course the best in the world at the sport of professional wrestling. It is Chris Jericho. Chris, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yes, I'm excited.
Of course, today is the first date of Fozzy's second European tour of 2011, which is monumental, really, to have two tours to the Europe continent in 1 year. It's really a successful endeavour to have that and to have a band that really is able to sell tickets like that and to constantly draw.
Yeah, we try to come to Europe twice a year. We always have since we first came here in 2005. And we love coming here. We kind of consider it to be a second home for us. And people have always been very responsive to us from the first time we came here in 2004. So it's something that we always put a lot of importance into. And not just doing, you know, the Londons and the Manchesters and the Birminghams and the Dublins and the Belfasts. We want to go, you know, here we are in Reading, Reading. What is it? Reading. One it is. And, you know, we're hitting all the hot spots, York and High Wycombe and Wrexham. And I mean, we tour everywhere in the UK as much as we can because we have a great fan base here. And we're actually a little bit sad that we didn't get to come to Ireland this time. We wanted to, but it just didn't work out. So hopefully next year.
Brilliant.
With the dates the last time led into the summer festivals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sonosphere, a lot of your influences, I suppose, over the years, some of the heavyweights there playing. What was it like to be on stage, or certainly be part of a bill with such legends?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was amazing. I mean, to play with the big four, Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth. The night we played, Slipknot was playing, Motorhead. So, I mean, the festival season is such a great time over in Europe and in the UK, and we were glad to get back to that. We played Download a few years ago, and then it had been a few years since we got a chance to come over and play the festivals. And it was a huge step for us. I mean, to play Sonosphere was amazing. And, you know, off of that tour, we went and did a bunch of shows, festivals in Germany and the Netherlands and Belgium. We did a tour with Anthrax. So yeah, it was just another step in kind of the advancement of Fozzy, and then led us to being able to come back again here now.
With this tour then out of the way, or sorry, when this one does end, is there plans for a fifth Fozzy album? Will we see another one after Chasing the Grill?
Yeah, we're working on it right now, and this is the last tour for the Chasing the Grill record. And then after this, we go and record another one for next summer to tie into the festivals and kind of do what we did last summer. Sweet. And do some shows everywhere and do the big festivals and everything we can this time. It's been almost 2 years since Chasing the Grail came out, and there was so much momentum for us. Really took the band to the next level. Yep. So we want to continue to build on that momentum.
Yeah, it was huge here.
You've often mentioned Iron Maiden as an inspirational band that you might have listened to growing up. Who else did you listen to back in the day, and perhaps who would you listen to today? Perhaps I suppose you could say who's on your iPod, really. Yeah,
I have a pretty diverse collection. It's funny, this morning I had it on shuffle, and it was like, I think Metallica Whiplash went right into Rico Suave by Gerardo. So, but yeah, you know, I loved Maiden and Metallica. Those are my two bands. I was a huge Beatles fan. I love The Police, Dream Theater, Halloween, Kiss, Loudness.
It's a crazy mix there.
Rush, Megadeth, you know, Annihilator, Van Halen, Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I have a pretty eclectic mix of bands that I like, and that's why it was really cool for us to tour with Anthrax. I mean, being a big fan of that band, and actually to be there opening for them was very surreal and really cool. And then, like I said, the poster at home with Metallica on the top and Fozzy kind of almost near the bottom. It was pretty cool to have that as a souvenir for sure.
Do you find these days that rock and alternative bands maybe find it a little bit more difficult to get radio airplay? Like perhaps in the 90s you'd have had Guns N' Roses and Nirvana, and with that being the case, do you think it's perhaps harder to not have the support of, you know, a giant corporate label, and maybe it's easier now to kind of get the word out through the internet and other ways like that?
First of all, it's funny that you said Nirvana, because that's how I say Nirvana. You know, it's like we're
Canadians and Irish,
Commonwealth English, but everyone always goes, it's Nirvana, pasta, drama. So but I mean, there is, I guess, you know, satellite radio has helped a lot in the States of getting a lot of airplay. And I mean, we just did a bunch of shows with Avenged Sevenfold and Bullet for My Valentine, and they don't have any problem getting any airplay at all. So I mean, there is a different kind of a changing of the guard for newer bands, and there's a lot of great bands out there that are still getting a lot of airplay. Does the new Ozzy song get a lot of airplay, or the new Maiden song? Probably not, but you know, as far as rock radio, it's based more around, like I said, the Avenged Sevenfolds, the Seethers, the Bullets, and then bands like that. And that's cool for us. And we can play with both bands. And actually, you know, we really had a great time playing with Avenged and doing the Uproar Festival, and we're hoping to do that next year. That'd be great for us to do that, and we could definitely fit into our music is classic, but it's also modern too. So it could fit into, you know, we could open for Iron Maiden, or we could open for Bullet for My Valentine, and kind of have a good crowd either way.
Cool. You know, with the differences, I'd be curious to know between the wrestling world on the road and I suppose the rock and roll world, not to put it so, you know, tongue in cheek. Is there much of a difference?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at, like, I mean, obviously with the WWE, you would go do the arenas, you know, the O2 Arena, for example, or whatever. With Fozzy, I mean, we've done some arenas before. We just did a whole bunch with the Uproar thing, like I said, but we're doing our own shows. They're in the clubs, and that's cool. So, I mean, that's a big difference. But I actually, you know, when you're with Fozzy, you're traveling on the bus all together, which is very different from how you travel in the States with the WWE. And in Europe, you'll travel on a bus too, but it's more of a coach type of a vibe.
Right.
Then you go to the hotel, then you check out, then you fly or get in the bus on the coach. I'd rather tour on our bus, because you got the bunks, you can sleep on it, you can watch movies. You know, it's just
you have the space and comfort.
Have some space, have a couple drinks, relax. You know, not that you don't have drinks on the WWE buses, but it's just different. It becomes your house on wheels. And not having to go through the airports is a big plus. That's a real hassle. And a lot of times with the WWE, you have to do a lot of airports because you're flying to different countries and flying to the bigger cities. And, you know, with us doing the smaller cities, you just drive there. So there's pros and cons to both, for sure.
So with a lot of reviews of Fozzy shows, you find there's a lot of praise for fan interaction. You're very accessible to fans, and even on stage you're, you know, quite I think connected with fans. It's easy to see. Is there much of a transition similar to that question from being on stage to being a WWE star, and also then of course the fact that, you know, is it like cutting a promo essentially when you're talking on the mic, and do you even think high spots in the midst of a show?
Well, I mean, I never considered myself, you know, just a wrestler. I was always an entertainer, and I've been playing in bands way longer than I was a wrestler. I've been playing in bands since I was 12. So when I first started wrestling, I didn't want to be a wrestler. I wanted to be, you know, David Lee Roth, Paul Stanley of wrestling. So I kind of always took what they did on stage and tried to bring that to the ring. And then, you know, now doing, you know, being my own frontman with Fozzy, I mean, they're kind of reciprocal, you know, and basically whether it's wrestling or music or acting or whatever it is, you have to connect with the audience, and you have to engage them, you know, and make sure they're involved and make sure they're having fun and kind of lead the charge. And that's what you do anytime you perform in front of a live crowd. It doesn't matter what form of entertainment it is. So I never really think of it in wrestling terms, and I never really think of wrestling in wrestling terms. It's more entertainment. That's how I look at it. That's how I always did look at it.
Right.
To make choices like going into something like Dancing with the Stars, or what do they call it? It's Dancing with the Stars. Over here, it's under Strictly.
Right.
What do they call it? Strictly something.
Strictly Ballroom.
But in a sense, would that be the same from you to say, I want to go into this because it's entertainment, or because it's just fun and you were away from the ring and you just want to kind of try other stuff in the entertainment
Well, I mean,
side?
it doesn't always relate to being away from the ring. Like I said, like I've always done other stuff besides wrestling for my entire career.
Sure.
Yeah, and Dance with the Stars was offered to me a couple times, and I said no. And then the third time I thought, well, why not? It is all entertainment, and doing that show actually, I mean, talk about just increasing my notoriety and my fan base times 1,000. And actually, physically, I mean, dancing is very hard, and anybody that makes fun of it or thinks it's not should just try it for one day, because I knew it was going to be hard, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It actually reminded me of training for wrestling, to be honest with you, because you're doing it over and over and over and over again. Or it's like learning a song. You learn your part, you kind of fuck it up, then you learn it better, then you play it with the other person, and then they kind of sucks, but then when you finally get it tight and in the groove, that's when you can finally feel it. So being a wrestler helped me on that show, and being a musician helped me on that show. But yeah, it was just more of I wanted to do it just because it was a challenge, and because I wanted to learn the art form of what dancing is. So I had a great time on that show. I had withdrawals when I got cut, because you practice 7-8 hours a day every day for like 8 or 9 weeks, and when it's done, you're like, what do I do now? You know.
Now, these days, so many internet wrestling news websites are out there publishing a lot of times inaccurate predictions about perhaps what's going to happen regards angles, and even at times slandering wrestlers and perhaps, you know, damaging their private lives in some ways by telling false lies, really. Do you think it's sort of a sense that, you know, it's a good thing for the business or a bad thing to have these websites out there, or is there any good in them at all, really?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if it's like reading Billboard magazine or Entertainment Weekly. I mean, if you read the good ones, they'll report the news, and then as it kind of filters down, you get a lot of cheap ones, and those ones are kind of just make stuff up as they go. So, I mean, if you're going to go online as a fan or as a performer, as a professional, you have to take it with a grain of salt. You know, people will always say, "Well, I read on the internet that, you know, you actually are, you know, an Oompa Loompa," and it's like, well, if you read it there, it must be true, like, or whatever it may be. So it's like a lot of things have maybe a grain of truth to it, and some of it just has no truth to it at all. Like, I read sometimes things where it's like, oh, I didn't even know that about myself. I guess I'm going to be on Raw tonight in 5 minutes. Well, I'm in Tampa and Raw's in Edmonton, so I guess I better get going. So, I mean, people just really. That's kind of the world we live in. People just have opinions, and they all like to express them online and give their. That's what's the one I was reading. Colleagues of Jericho have said that he's coming back, and it's like, colleagues? Like, I don't even know I had a colleague. What's a colleague? I got some friends, but I don't really have any colleagues. It's like I sound like a university professor or something.
It seems in every sense you are a miss from the ring, though. A lot of people mentioning you recently. You know, between Twitter accounts and between people stealing moves, we won't mention any names, but
all of them.
Do you care to comment on it? But more or less, do you find it as a tribute, a show of respect, or would you somewhat take it as offensive?
It's never offensive. I mean, everybody. I mean, I had influences too that I, you know, would emulate and want to be like, but sometimes guys, they cross the line into just blatant ripping off.
Sure.
And that, to me, it's like, I don't really care, but for them, I think it's just lame, because, you know, if you want to make it in wrestling or in anything, you got to do something that's different, that's never been done before. So it doesn't help them to come off as second-rate Jericho copies, just like if I came off as a second-rate Nick Bockwinkel copy or a second-rate Shawn Michaels. I mean, there might be elements of those guys that I kind of put into my own little blender and make what Jericho is. But if you're completely stealing, you know, you'll never make it past a certain level. So I think it's just a detriment to their own personal advancement and professional advancement. But, you know, do what you want. I don't care.
Before your time in the WWE, you were, of course, a part of WCW, and I think at that time fans had it so good. They had the advantage of having a true rival and I think a true competitor to the WWE. Do you think that could ever exist again, that somebody could rise to the WWE's heights, if you like, and kind of equal them and be that legitimate sort of competitor to Vince?
I don't think so. I don't think it'll ever happen, because the WWE is such a machine at this point. You know, Vince could, you know, leave this earth tomorrow and it would still continue on. I think it'd be not impossible, but you'd have to have a lot of money behind you. And it's not like it was 10 years ago where there was guys working in Japan or guys working over here or guys in ECW or whatever that you could bring in. Pretty much everybody that's any good, that's worthy of drawing money, works for Vince now. So if you were going to go and open up another company, you'd almost have to, you know, have so much money that guys couldn't turn you down, kind of like it was with WCW back in '96 or so, '95. But it's not going to happen. I really don't think. I think Vince is the monopoly for the business, and there'll always be, you know, second rate and third rate, but let's face it, everybody wants to work for Vince McMahon. I don't care who you are. You know, Hulk Hogan wants to work for Vince McMahon. You know, Dixie Carter would probably work for Vince if you offered her a job. You know what I mean? So TNA could be a good second, but they'll never be first. And anybody that actually says that with a straight face is probably just saying it, you know, as bravado.
Yeah.
Your take quickly on legends still being around today, the likes of Ric Flair, and now we see the return of Kevin Nash. Your thoughts on somebody like Nash being back in the WWE?
Good for him. I mean, obviously, if he's back, they must have a reason for him and a storyline for him. And if he's there, he must be ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If a guy like Kevin is going to actually be on TV, I would hope that he's at his absolute best. But I guess we'll find out when he starts to wrestle. But I mean, that's the thing about wrestling, is you can be there in your 50s and 60s and still make your mark and make your impact, because it's all storyline driven. So good good for them.
Recently, we saw Mark Henry take the World Heavyweight Championship, and in a sense, it feels like almost a return to the age of the big man. And now you're seeing main events like Mark Henry v Big Show, whereas at one time you were in a tag team with Big Show. Do you think it's about time that it was time to get back to that big man era? Because it just feels like those matches have been sort of almost lost in the shuffle. You have the kind of muscly guys, but not quite that kind of classic British wrestling big man thing, the giant haystacks and the Big Daddy, etc.
I don't know. I think they've always kind of had those matches. It's just now they have a real focus on Mark Henry, and he's doing a great job with his character. You know, he's been the same guy doing the same matches for 15 years, but now he actually has a character that people can get into and that he's getting into, and that's what it's all about. It's not about the moves or how big you are. I don't care how big you are. I've seen the best guys that were like, you know, 5'8", whatever, and I've seen the biggest physical specimens that were the total shits that I would never pay money to watch. So it's not about how big you are, what moves you know. It's all about your character, and like I said earlier, connecting with the crowd.
I think just on that point, I mean, it's often been said, we'll say, that WWE maybe pushes bigger guys and that maybe smaller guys don't have a chance. Has that changed in recent years? I mean, we're seeing guys that are perhaps a little bit smaller now making it to the top.
Well, I was one of them, I guess. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it doesn't matter your size. It's all about how you connect with the crowd, and it doesn't mean you have to designate, okay, this week a small guy has to win, or this week a big guy has to win. It doesn't make any difference. It's just whoever people are getting behind or people are getting into in a bad way because they don't like them or whatever. So, size to me was never an issue, because if it was, I never would have made it. Because when I started in 1990, it was all about the big guys, and I just didn't agree. I just thought I could do it anyways. So I'm the wrong guy to ask if you want to ask about the era of the big man. I think a lot of big guys are boring.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of big guys are exciting too. So just use the exciting guy. I think Big Show is amazing. I think Mark Henry's doing great if he has the right guy to work with, you know, and I think there's a lot of good workers of guys that are big, but I think the majority of big guys are just slow and they're boring and they suck, so I don't want to see them. You know, that's just my opinion.
We won't keep you too long. We'll probably finish up with this one maybe. This time of year we get a lot of talk about WrestleMania next year, and recently we ran the poll on the website where we asked dream matches for next year's WrestleMania. Your name was in the mix, and the opponent, CM Punk. Your thoughts? Would you be any way up for that, I suppose?
Well, I mean, like I said, for me to go back to the WWE, I would have to have something that interests me personally. Right. I mean, you can say any name. I mean, it could be, you know, CM Punk, it could be The Rock, it could be Funaki. You know, it's like, but to me, it's like I have to feel it. And right now, I'm happy doing all the stuff I'm doing. And then when I'm finished with this tour, we're doing a new record. Then I have a bunch of stuff going on out in Hollywood too. That's kind of coming to fruition. I had to leave that block of time open. You know, January, February, March, April, May. So. You know, maybe someday. I mean, Punk is great. He's doing a great job. So, but as of right now, you know, as much as people don't like to hear it, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't have any plans as of right now to go back to WWE. You know, so, but I never said that I wouldn't go back. It just now is not the right time for me.
Absolutely. And in a sense, is there anything you would miss on a daily basis about wrestling? Is there something that you kind of had been so used to that is now not part of your life, perhaps, by not being in the ring?
No, man. It's like I haven't worked in wrestling since September of 2010, so I could never. I mean, honestly, like I said, it makes people mad, and I apologize, and I'm sorry, but I could never wrestle again and not have any problems with it. I mean, I've done everything I wanted to do. If you would have asked me that before I came back in 2007, I might have said, well, there's still some things, but that last run from 2007 to 2010 was probably the best work of my career, and everything that I ever wanted to do, I did at that point. So, like I said, I'm not planning on never wrestling again, but if something happens and I never do, I'm not going to have any regrets. You know?
Great answer. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
All right, man.
Let you go and eat your dinner.
All right.
On that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Back to Ireland soon.
Yeah, man.
All right.
See you again.
Right.
Bye-bye.
I heard you guys hear like really heavy music. Is that true? Not just any heavy music. Like I heard you like really fucking heavy music. like dirty, filthy, stinky, sticky, scummy, moldy, crotchety, filthy, brandy fucking music, yeah! Crotchety? I was about to say crotchety. That's fucking... Are you into crotchety metal? This song is fucking crotchety. And it's fucking heavy. This song is called Wanderlust.